having problems with is they're not allowing us to live stream it on YouTube, so we're going to just start, record it, and it'll go up later. I'm glad you're all here, and we're reading the chapter, The Master and Narendra, and we're on page 718 if you're following along, top of the page. We were talking about people who do other things while they tell their beads. So there are women who come to the Ganges for their bath, and instead of thinking of God, gossip about no end of things. What jewels did you offer at the time of your son's marriage? Has so-and-so returned from her father-in-law's house? So-and-so is seriously ill. So-and-so went to see the bride. We hope that they will offer a magnificent dowry and that there will be a great feast. Harish always nags at me. He can't stay away from me, even for an hour. My child, I couldn't come to see you all these days. I was so busy with the betrothal of so-and-so's daughter. You see, they have come to bathe in the holy river, and yet they indulge in all sorts of worldly talk. The master began to look intently at the younger Narayan and went into samadhi. Did he see God himself in the pure-souled devotee? The devotees silently watched the figure of Sri Ramakrishna motionless in samadhi. A few minutes before, there had been so much laughter in the room. Now there was a deep silence, as if no one were there. The master sat with folded hands, as in his photograph. After a short while, his mind began to come down to the relative plane. He heaved a long sigh and became aware of the outer world. He looked at the devotees and began to talk with them of their spiritual progress. Master to the younger Narayan, I have been eager to see you. You will succeed. Come here once in a while. Well, which do you prefer, jnana or bhakti? The younger Narayan, pure bhakti. Master, but how can you love someone unless you know him? Pointing to M with a smile. How can you love him unless you know him? To M, since a pure-souled person has asked for pure bhakti, it must have some meaning. One does not seek bhakti of one's own accord without inborn tendencies. This is the characteristic of prema bhakti. There is another kind of bhakti called jnana bhakti, which is love of God based on reasoning. To the younger Narayan, let me look at your body. Take off your shirt. Fairly broad chest. You will succeed. Come here now and then. Sri Ramakrishna was still in the ecstatic mood. He spoke tenderly to the other devotees about their future. Master Tapaltu, you will succeed too, but it will take a little time. To Balaram, why don't I attract you to me? It is just to avoid trouble. To Mani Mohan, Mohini Mohan, as for you, you are all right. There is a little yet to be done. When that is achieved, nothing will remain, neither duty, nor work, nor the world itself. Is it good to get rid of everything? As Sri Ramakrishna spoke these words, he looked at Mohini affectionately, as if scanning his innermost feelings. Was Mohini really wondering whether it would be wise to renounce all for God? After a while, Sri Ramakrishna said, God binds the Bhagavata Pandit to the world with one tie. Otherwise, who would remain to explain the sacred book? He keeps the Pandit bound for the good of men. That is why the Divine Mother has kept you in the world. Now Sri Ramakrishna spoke to the young Brahmin. Master, give up knowledge and reasoning. Accept bhakti. Bhakti alone is the essence. Is this the third day of your stay? Brahmin with folded hands. Yes, sir. Master, have faith. Depend on God. Then you will not have to do anything yourself. Mother Kali will do everything for you. Jnana goes as far as the outer court, but bhakti can enter the inner court. The pure self is unattached. Both vidya and avidya are in it, but it is unattached. Sometimes there is a good and sometimes a bad smell in the air, but the air itself is unaffected. Once Vyasadeva was about to cross the Jamuna. The gopis also were there. They wanted to go to the other side of the river to sell curd, milk, and cream, but there was no ferry at the time. They were all worried about how to cross the river when Vyasa said to them, "I'm very hungry." The milkmaids fed him with milk and cream. He finished almost all their food. Then Vyasa said to the river, "O Jamuna, if I have not eaten anything, then your waters will part and we shall walk through." It so happened. The river parted and a pathway was formed between the waters. Following that path, the gopis and Vyasa crossed the river. Vyasa had said, "If I have not eaten anything," that means the real man is pure Atman. Atman is unattached and beyond Prakriti. It is neither hunger nor thirst. It knows neither birth nor death. It does not age, nor does it die. It is immutable as Mount Sumeru. He who has attained this knowledge of Brahman is a Jivan Mukta, liberated while living in the body. He rightly understands that the Atman and the body are two separate things. After realizing God, one does not identify the Atman with the body. These two are separate, like the kernel and the shell of the coconut when its milk dries up. The Atman moves, as it were, within the body. When the milk of worldly mindedness has dried up, one gets self-knowledge. Then one feels that the Atman and body are two separate things. The kernel of a green almond or betel nut cannot be separated from the shell. But when they are ripe, the juice dries up and the kernel separates from the shell. After the attainment of the knowledge of Brahman, the milk of worldly mindedness dries up. But it is extremely difficult to attain the knowledge of Brahman. One doesn't get it by merely talking about it. Some people feign it, smiling. There was a man who was a great liar, but on the other hand, he used to say he had the knowledge of Brahman. When someone took him to task for telling lies, he said, "Why, this world is truly like a dream. If everything is unreal, then can truth itself be real? Truth is as unreal as falsehood." All laughed. Sri Ramakrishna sat with the devotees on the mat on the floor. He was smiling. He said to his devotees, "Please stroke my feet gently." They carried out his request. He said to him, "There's great significance in this," stroking his feet. Placing his hand on his heart, the master said, "If there is anything here, then through this service, the ignorance and illusion of the devotees will be completely destroyed." Suddenly, Sri Ramakrishna became serious, as if to reveal a secret. Master to him, "There is no outsider here. The other day when Harish was with me, I saw Satchidananda come out of this sheath, his own body. It said, 'I incarnate myself in every age.' I thought that I myself was saying these words out of mere fancy. I kept quiet and watched. Again, Satchidananda itself spoke, saying, 'Chaitanya too worshipped Shakti.'" The devotees listened to these words in amazement. Some wondered whether God himself was seated before them in the form of Sri Ramakrishna. The master paused a moment. Then he said, addressing him, "I saw that this is the fullest manifestation of Satchidananda, but this time The divine power is manifested through the glory of sattva. The devotee sat spellbound. Master to M. Just now I was saying to the mother, I cannot talk much. I also said to her, may people's inner consciousness be awakened by only one touch. You see, such is the power of Yoga Maya that she can cast a spell. She did so at Vrindavan. That is why Subal, one of companions of Sri Krishna, was able to unite Sri Krishna and Radhika. Yoga Maya, the primal power, has a power of attraction. I applied that power myself. To M. Well, what do you think of those who come here? Well, do you think that those who come here are realizing anything? M. Yes, sir, it must be so. Master, how do you know? M. Smiling. Everyone says, whoever goes to him doesn't return to the world. Master, smiling. A bullfrog was caught by a water snake. The snake could neither swallow the frog nor let it go. As a result, the frog suffered very much. He croaked continuously, but the snake suffered too. But if the frog had been seized by a cobra, he would have been quiet after one or two croaks. All laugh. To the young devotees, read the Bhakti Chaitanya Chandrika by Trilokya. Ask Trilokya for a copy. He has written well about Chaitanya Deva. A devotee, will he give it to us? Master smiling, why not? If a farmer has a good crop of melons, he can easily give away 2 or 3. All laugh. Won't Trilokya give you the book free? To Paltu, come here now and then. Paltu, I shall come whenever I can. Master, will you see me in Calcutta when I go there? Paltu, yes, I shall try. Master, that's the answer of a calculating mind. Paltu, if I don't say I shall try, I may be a liar. Master to M, I don't mind the lies of these boys, they are not free. To Haripada, why hasn't Mahendra Mukherjee come here lately? Haripada, I'm not sure. M smiling, he was practicing jnana yoga. Master, no, it's not that. The other day he promised to send me in his carriage to the theater to see a play about the life of Prahlada, but he didn't send the carriage. Perhaps that is why he hasn't come. M, one day I saw Mahima Chakravarti and had a talk with him. It seems that Mahendra visits him. Master, but Mahima talks about bhakti also. He loves to recite the hymn. What need is there of penance if God is worshipped with love? M smiling. He says that because you make him say it. Girish Chandra Ghosh was always talking to the devotees about the master. Haripada. Girish Ghosh sees many visions nowadays. After going home from here, he remains absorbed in spiritual moods and sees many things. Master, that may be true. Coming to the Ganges, one sees many things, boats, ships, and whatnot. Haripada. Girish Ghosh says, from now on I shall occupy myself only with my work. In the morning, on the stroke of the clock, I shall sit down with my pen and inkpot and write for the whole day. He makes the resolve, no doubt, but cannot carry it out. No sooner do we visit him than he begins to talk about you. You asked him to send Narendra here in a carriage. He said, I shall hire a carriage for Narendra. At 5 o'clock, the younger Narayan was ready to go home. Sri Ramakrishna stood by his side on the northeast veranda and gave him various instructions. Then the boy saluted the master and departed. Many of the devotees also took their leave. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on the small couch talking to Mohini. Mohini's wife was almost mad with grief on account of her son's death. Sometimes she laughed and sometimes she wept, but she felt peaceful in Sri Ramakrishna's presence. Master, how is your wife now? Mohini, she becomes very quiet when she is here, but sometimes at home she becomes very wild. The other day she was going to kill herself. When Sri Ramakrishna heard this, he appeared worried. Mohini said to him humbly, please give her a few words of advice. Master, don't allow her to cook. That will heat her brain all the more. And keep her in the company of others so that they may watch her. It was dusk. Preparations were going on in the temples for the evening worship. The lamp was lighted in the master's room and incense was burned. Seated on the small couch, Sri Ramakrishna saluted the Divine Mother and chanted her name in a tender voice. There was nobody in the room except M, who was sitting on the floor. Sri Ramakrishna rose from the couch. M also stood up. The master asked him to shut the west and north doors of the room. M obeyed and stood by Sri Ramakrishna on the porch. The master said that he wanted to go to the Kali temple. Leaning on M's arm, he came down to the terrace of the temple. He asked M to call Babaram and sat down. After visiting the Divine Mother, the master returned to his room across the court, chanting, O Mother, Mother, Raja Rajeshwari. Sri Ramakrishna entered his room and sat on the small couch. He had been passing through an extraordinary state of mind. He could not touch any metal. He had said a few days before, it seems that the Divine Mother has been removing my mind from all ideas of possession. He had been eating from plantain leaves and drinking water from an earthen tumbler. He could not touch a metal jar. So he had asked the devotees to get a few earthen jars for him. If he touched metal plates or pots, his hand ached as if stung by a hornfish. Prasanna had brought a few earthen pots, but they were very small. The master said with a smile, these pots are too small, but he's a nice boy. Once I asked him to take off his clothes and he stood naked in front of me. What a child he is. Tarak of Bulgaria arrived with a friend and bowed low before Sri Ramakrishna, who was sitting on the small couch. The room was lighted by oil lamp. A few devotees were sitting on the floor. Tarak was about 20 years old and married. His parents did not allow him to come to Sri Ramakrishna. He lived mostly at his home near Bobazar. The master was very fond of him. Tarak's friend had a tamasic nature. He rather scoffed at the master and religious ideas in general. Master to Tarak's friend, why don't you go and visit the temples? Friend, oh, I've seen them before. Master, is it wrong for Tarak to come here? Friend, you know best. Master to him, he is a headmaster. Friend, oh. Sri Ramakrishna asked about Tarak's health and talked with him at length. Tarak was ready to leave. Ramakrishna asked him to be careful about many things. Master, a good man, beware. Beware of lust and greed. Once you sink in the maya of lust, you will not be able to rise. It is the whirlpool of Vishalakshi. Stream near Kamarpukur. He who has fallen into it cannot pull himself out again. Come here now and then. Tarak, my people at home won't let me. A devotee, suppose someone's mother says to him, don't go to Dakshineshwar. Suppose she curses him, saying, if you go there, you will be drinking my blood. Master, a mother who says that is no mother. She is the embodiment of avidya. There is no sin in disobeying such a mother. She obstructs her son's path to God. There is no harm in disobeying your elders for the sake of God. For Rama's sake, Bharat did not obey his mother Kaikeyi. There's a footnote here. Through Kaikeyi's machinations, her stepson Rama was exiled to the forest so that Bharat might become king, but Bharat refused to ascend to the throne. The gopis did not obey their husbands when they were forbidden to visit Krishna. Prahlada disobeyed his father for God. Vali disregarded the words of Shukracharya, his teacher, in order to please God. Vibhishana went against the wishes of Ravana, his elder brother, to please Rama. But you must obey your elders in all other things. Let me see your hand. Sri Ramakrishna took Tarak's hand in his own and seemed to feel its weight. A few moments later, he said, "There is a little crookedness in your mind, but that will go. Pray to God a little and come here now and then. Yes, that twist will go. Is it you that have hired the house at Bogazar?" Tarak, "Not I, sir, but my parents." Master, smiling, "They or you? Is it because you are afraid of the tiger?" Tarak had a young wife. Did the master mean that a woman is like a tiger to a man? Tarak saluted Sri Ramakrishna and took his leave. The master lay down on the small couch. He seemed worried about Tarak. Suddenly he said to M, "Why do I worry so much about these boys?" M kept still. He was thinking over a reply. The master asked him, "Why don't you speak?" Mohini's wife entered the room and sat at one side. Sri Ramakrishna spoke to M about Tarak's friend. Master, why did Tarak bring that fellow with him? M, perhaps he wanted a companion for the road. It is a long way from Calcutta, so he brought a friend with him. The master suddenly addressed Mohini's wife and said, "By unnatural death, one becomes an evil spirit. Beware. Make it clear to your mind. Is this what you have come to after hearing and seeing so much?" Mohini was about to take his leave. He saluted Sri Ramakrishna. His wife also saluted the master, who stood near the north door of the room. Mohini's wife spoke to him in a whisper. "Master, do you want to stay here?" Mohini's wife, "Yes, I want to spend a few days with the Holy Mother at the Nahabad. May I?" Master, "That will be all right, but you talk of dying. That frightens me, and the Ganges is so near." And that's the end of that chapter. So I think we'll stop there. Does anyone have anything that they would like to comment on or ask a question about?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, I have a question.
Okay.
The Tarak, is that Swami Shivananda?
Yes, I believe it is. So he was, Swami Shivananda and Swami Brahmananda had both been married by their families early on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other question? Comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes. I can't hear
He's
you.
asking if we can hear him.
I can't hear you.
Okay, never mind.
No, Lito, speak. We need to hear you.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you
Yes.
now, Lito.
Yeah, it's Mohini, that is M, right?
Right.
Yes.
And who is younger Naren?
The younger Naren, who was that, Vrajaprana?
Narayana.
Narayana
Narayana.
was his other name.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You know that Swami Nanda, they lived with God, or God lived with them. That gives you the background on everyone.
Krishnaprana, it says that Chaitanya worshipped Shakti.
Yeah.
Can you explain that? Because I'm not aware. I don't know enough about Chaitanya to say what he worshipped, but it says that he worshipped Shakti. I didn't quite, I know what Shakti is supposed to be, but I don't know what it means in relationship to Chaitanya. It was a few pages. It's on page 720, end of the second paragraph.
And it says, I saw Satchidananda come out of this body.
Uh-huh.
It said, I incarnate myself in every age. I thought that I myself was saying these things, these words out of mere fancy. I kept quiet and watched. Again, Satchidananda itself spoke, saying, Chaitanya too worshipped Shakti. Well, my interpretation of that would be that Chaitanya was an incarnation of God.
Mm-hmm.
Krishna is saying here, admitting that he's an incarnation of God who worships Kali. And so Satchidananda was verifying that Chaitanya too worshipped the divine power, is what my interpretation would be. Because I know in reading, I have read that only in Bengal, in that area, is the belief that Kali and Krishna are the same. And I think it's a little harder for the rest of India to see that, but in Bengal, they often hold that Kali and Krishna are the same divinity.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
That's
thanks.
my interpretation. Any other questions? When I wanted to make a comment, when Ramakrishna asked Prasanna to take off his clothes, one of the fetters to enlightenment is shame. And the fact that he was able to just take them off like a small child and stand there shows he does not have that fetter. It's also the same fetter when you read the Vrindavan Leela with the gopis, and Krishna hides their clothes in the trees when they're bathing. It's to remove their fetters to enlightenment. So they have basically no identification with the body. They identify with their own divinity. Sometimes people can have other interpretations, but that would be my interpretation. Any other comments? I hope everyone is keeping as well as you possibly can. We're all praying for everyone who's in all these fire areas. And we continue to pray for them because I looked at a map today and it is the entire West Coast. I don't think anywhere has any air worth breathing.
And thank God Santa Barbara's escaped.
We have escaped, but it's smoky and ominous here too.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that. Okay.
The smoke is going all over.
And the ash.
Smoke and ash everywhere, but not like you have, Sarah.
Not like here, but yes, it's.
No. But we all send our love and prayers, and I think if there's no more comments, we'll end with
Love to you all.
love to you.
Be safe, everybody.
Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.